host, Alex Garrett.
Well, I'm actually catching my next guest right now at the studios that are celebrating 100 years. Now, I know on the clock I work at 9:70, but off the clock I just kind of podcast with whoever I vibe with and whoever I feel are great, no matter what station. And my next guest actually helps me out with sports, but his mainstay is 710 WOR. He is Tony Atwood. And Tony, I'm bringing you on today because this is the 710th episode of my original podcast. So I figured, why not dedicate it to 710 WOR? And you're a big part of it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for considering me.
My pleasure. So you've been there for how many years now, firstly?
I started off in 1999, and then when corporate America bought WOR, I got laid off in 2012. And then they called me back by the grace of God in 2015. Last week, March 23rd, marked my 7th anniversary back at WOR.
Well, I mean, 1999, the 2000s, though, I mean, let's talk about the technology of OR. I know it's changed everywhere in radio, so were you ever rolling DATs on the Bob Grant show or something like that back then?
Yeah, we had DATs, mini discs, reel-to-reels, and we had carts.
Unbelievable. And now today you're basically operating on a next gen, I believe.
Yes, next gen.
Now, I brought you on because you probably have a lot of moments, and I want to start with the gambling years because that's been a centerpiece of every advertisement I've seen for OR. Mm-hmm. And so what made the gambling family so impactful for OR that my audience may not know? I mean, they know that his grandfather crossed the George Washington Bridge as the first ever radio broadcast, something like that, across the bridge. But what was the meaning of the gambling family, and what did you have? What was your involvement with them, with their shows?
Yeah, but that was there 3 generations. The great grandfather, the grandfather, and I take that back. You have 3 generations, and I worked with the 3rd one. It was monumental. Because that was the first radio station with a morning show. And when I started working for WOR, my grandmother was alive at the time. And she said, you know what, I used to listen to his father, when your mother and uncle were kids. So it was a staple in New York City.
And how has OR continued to be? Because, when gambling left the airways, there was a lot of question, left OR, I should say, there was a lot of question of what's next for them. And they found Len and Michael. But obviously, how did they fill the void of the gambling years?
It was hard to do that because after John Gamblin up and left in the early 2000s, they replaced him with Ed Walsh. That worked out for a while, and then John Gamblin came back. Matter of fact, John Gamblin stayed until 2012. Once Clear Channel that became iHeart bought WOR, he left.
I know that when iHeart bought OR, it was kind of a game changer, and it still is to this day. Do you find the integration between the iHeartRadio app? I mean, they have a huge app, and OR. Are they? How hand in hand are they in making the content every day for OR?
It's it's hard to answer that question because when I'm here, I'm doing I'm doing my shift. I think I'm like every other person that works in radio. When I'm at home, I'm really not listening to radio or listening to any podcasts. That's the time I just have for me. That's just time for me. Me time. Might watch TV or read a book or just take it easy. So it's really hard for me to answer that question. But I know. With the podcast, with the apps, you can, I've seen it that you can listen to any type of shows or listen to any type of music going through the iHeart app, on your computer or in your car. So I think they have the market on lockdown, so I think it's doing good, since the podcast is the latest thing now, the best thing since sliced bread.
All right, and since I'm sure the radio community is listening in here because obviously you have ties in the community, I have ties, you got to tell us about the moment that the electrical fire hit the basement of OR, where OR is, and there was so much chaos. Mark Simone's describing it. He's calling you on the air, hey, how's NextGen doing? But describe that, because that's definitely part of the 100th anniversary, is it not?
Yeah. When the fire alarm went off that infamous Friday morning, we were just thinking it was just a normal fire drill. And then when it kept going on, and then when the security guard came upstairs and said, we're going to have to vacate the building because there's a fire downstairs in the basement. And we left. And we were outside. Thank God it wasn't snowing or raining. The sun was out. And, we had to tell Mark Simone and Joe Bartlett, like, look, they're telling us to vacate the premises. You guys going to have to go for what you know and just keep on talking until, or we tell you not to. You got to ad-lib and just keep it going because, rule number one in radio, you can't have dead air.
No, 100%. And I was listening to it unfold after the fact, and it was just like, whoa, Tony, are you okay? That was my first thought, because you and I are buddies outside of radio, and I'm like, are you okay? That was my first thought.
Yes, Frank, thank you, and I appreciate that. Yeah, I was fine, but you never know, man. It was crazy that day, and thank God that nobody got harmed, and nothing happened to the building.
Now I know you have a lot of stories that may not be for air, but working with Joey Reynolds had to be a trip. I know that was one of your main gigs back in the day.
Yeah, it was fun. Because I was on Joey Reynolds' show from 1999 to 2006. It was fun because it was overnight. We had a good time. 'Cause you had people coming in and out of the show. It made the shift easy and fun because you had comedians coming in. They were coming in from doing their stand up.
Sure.
You also had Broadway actors and actresses as well as singers coming up to the show. We had a good time. And, one thing I really enjoyed about doing Joey Reynolds' show, I got to meet the great Les Paul. Him and I became good friends. He was a fan of my voice. He told me he wished God had gifted him with my baritone voice. So I told him when we could switch it if he gave me one of his Gibson guitars. So needless to say, he never gave me one of his Gibson guitars, so he never got my baritone voice.
Well, then, there you go. By the way, you work at a number of stations, and I should add that. And you got to check out, if you want to be friends with Tony, you get to see a bunch of celebrities on his feed. I don't know how you do it, Tony, but it's like every day you're meeting someone through those doors.
Yes. I'm fortunate. I'm glad. People who are grown, seen, watching as a kid, and getting to meet them face to face and just having a normal conversation like you and I are having now. It seems surreal, but I'm very grateful.
All right, we cannot let this conversation go by without asking about Rush, because he did go over to OR, in, I believe, 2014. I mean, that was a huge deal. And for a few years, up until his passing, he was a cornerstone of OR. And I know people were upset when the Mets bumped him,
Yeah, but look, this is a business. And, I understand Rush has a following, and there were problems there were problems when we had day games. I used to feel sorry for our receptionist, Miss Anita. Like, okay, you're going to get a lot of phone calls, a lot of angry listeners. Those angry listeners need to get. They should have got with the program, and what I mean by that, they should have got a computer. So when Rush got bumped for the day games for the Mets, all they had to do was go online and go to the iHeart Radio app and listen to Rush.
Right, and of course that only lasted a couple of years, because I think by 16 or 17, I think he was on pretty much full time after the Mets left OR.
Yeah, that was it. We had no more interruptions, so people were happy. No one was having a cow anymore. They were able to hear the man of excellent broadcasting.
But for you, you're a sports guy. I'm sure you loved engineering those games because, hey, you got to be part of the Mets broadcast.
Yes. I enjoy, even though I'm a Yankee fan, but I did enjoy doing the Mets games. Yes.
So there was that. I think Hannity jumped over to OR too at one point. I'm not.
Yes. Yeah, because you had Rush, and then you had Sean Hannity.
And since his passing, I haven't really tuned in. How have they filled the void, I guess, on the national front?
Now they have Clay and Buck.
Okay.
And, look, there's never going to be another Rush. Let's just be real. Regardless if you like them or not. Hey, he did a lot for AM talk radio. You got to give credit when credit is due. The guys that replaced him, Clay and Buck, they're okay, but again, they'll never be able to fill the shoes, in my personal opinion, as Rush, or as a Rush Limbaugh, because there was only one Rush Limbaugh. They hopefully they'll succeed just by being themselves, Clay and Buck.
Well, you talk about credit where credit's due, and I know you also did a lot of work on the Car Doctor over the weekends. I mean, what was that like, working Saturdays with them for OR? I mean, it had to be fun.
Yeah, that was fun. Ron and Amy and him and I are friends to this day. When I wasn't working, he looked out for me when he started doing his show from his shop, then moved it to his house. So he reached out to me when he knew I needed a job, and I'm very grateful for that. And if he ever needs me, if I'm available, I'm there for him. So I love him for that. So it was great. Because some money was better than no money during that time. So
Sure.
He looked out for me.
All right, I'm getting chills now because I'm looking at where I'm at, and it says Contest 710, and I'm remembering, oh, shoot, we work at the same building that OR used to be in. So
111 Broadway.
What's that like coming back here? I mean, maybe the mystique of that's worn off, but I'm sure you're excited to come back down here to your old Stomping Grounds to do Seton Hall with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like it, because, I'm familiar with the studios, the building, and plus you and I, we have we work good together doing the games, me playing the commercials, you running the highlights, so I enjoy it, I'm grateful.
And it kind of erases those memories of 2012. I know that was a tough time down here when there was a change of hands.
Yes, it was, because a lot of people, lost their jobs, and we had to start from the bottom again, and it was kind of a culture shock, because during that time things had changed. The days of mailing your resume or going up to a place to hand your resumes were gone. You had to you had to do everything via computer. You had to upload. You had to upload your resume on the computer, and then you had to register on that job's website. To do all of this and do all that. There was a lot of loopholes, so that was something that we had to get used to.
Well, I can't let you go. I know you're running live radio right now at OR, but I can't let you go without naming two names, because one brought you back here, Jerry Crowley, who became GMA in 970 The Answer. Mark DeBoer, yes, as well. But on OR's ties, Crowley and, of course, Scott Lakefield. And I got to know Scott through the WOR Variety Radiothons with Cousin Brucey. I mean, there was a lot of history back there. I actually met gambling back in the day as a kid on those radiothons. But Scott Lakefield and Crowley kind of kept the vessel moving for all those years, and Scott's still there at OR.
Yes. He's still moving and grooving here at WOR, yes.
And I'm sure that you have a great relationship with both. I know you do, because Jerry brought you in here to 970 also.
Oh, yeah, Scott. I met Scott the first day at WOR in 1999. Back then, he was the producer for the Dolans, financial couple.
Oh, yes,
so
Ken and Daria.
That's how far Scott Lakefield and I go.
And when you look back, I mean, your time there, can you believe through the transition of power that they've lasted? And can you believe that this is the 100th year? In your eyes, looking back at your time, are you like, wow, we made it to 100?
Yeah, I look, the first year, first things first, never in a million years, that I thought I would be at a station, that marked its 100th anniversary, and also being in one of the first radio stations in New York City with Morning Show. So, like I said earlier during our conversation, it's surreal.
It has to be. And maybe if this podcast gets to 770 and 970, we'll honor those stations. But for now, this is 710th episode, and I appreciate you being part of this. But I can't let you go without asking you, did the Yanks do enough this year? You're a sports buff. You're a Yankee buff. It's going to be a tough season, it feels like, at the moment.
We're going to take it at face value. What looks good on paper, even though it looks good on paper, action speaks louder than words. So we'll see. And then I can't say the word that you and I normally say, but we'll just have to see once baseball season begins. We're going to take it game by game, again, face value, okay?
Amen. We'll get back to running WOR and its 100th anniversary, and I'm so glad you made some time for this podcast today.
My pleasure, my friend. Have a good one.
All right. I'm Alex Garrett. That was coverage of the 100th anniversary of 710 WOR, and of course, you got the familiar faces of Bartlett and Len and Michael, and it just goes on, and appreciate Tony who does all those shows for being with me right today. Thanks again, Tony.
Take care.
I'm Alex Garrett. We'll talk to you soon.